The Summoning. The night was dark and silent, the kind of silence that made even the wind sound like whispers of forgotten ghosts. In the middle of a ruined temple stood a young human named Daniel. He had been exploring the old ruins for days, driven by nothing more than curiosity and a strange pull he could not explain. The place was hidden deep within a mountain cave, its walls carved with symbols that glowed faintly as if waiting for someone to come. Daniel stepped carefully over broken stones, his torchlight shaking with every step. He was no warrior, no treasure hunter, just an ordinary man searching for answers to questions he did not understand. He had lost much in life and felt empty, as if he had been walking with a hollow chest for years. Something about these ruins promised more than silence, they promised change. At the center of the ruins stood an altar covered in dust. His fingers brushed over the stone surface and he felt warmth, as if the altar itself was alive. The symbols began to glow brighter, filling the chamber with a red and silver light. He pulled his hand away in shock, but it was already too late. The ground shook, the air grew heavy, and a voice unlike any human voice echoed inside his head. When the smoke cleared, she was standing there, a figure so strange and beautiful it made Daniel forget how to breathe. Her skin was pale with a faint shimmer. Her long dark hair floated as if under water, and her eyes glowed like molten fire. She was not human. She was a succubus. Her lips curved into a faint smile, yet her voice carried both power and sorrow. "You have awakened me, human," she said. "For centuries I have been bound here, waiting for one to release me. For your action, you shall receive 3 gifts, 3 desires that I must fulfill." Daniel froze. He had read stories of demons and spirits. He knew enough from legends to be afraid. Succubi were said to be tricksters, dangerous creatures that granted wishes only to destroy the ones who asked. Yet her eyes, despite their fire, carried something else, something fragile. Most men would have fallen to their knees, begging for wealth, power, or pleasures. But Daniel only stood there, staring at her. His mind was not filled with greed. Instead, a question rose from the hollow place inside him. What if she was just as trapped as he was? What if behind the beauty there was pain? Her voice pressed again. "Speak, human. What is your first gift? Tell me your desire." Daniel's hands trembled. His heart pounded against his ribs. He could have asked for gold, for strength, for endless glory. Instead, his lips parted, and he whispered something she did not expect. The succubus froze, her eyes widened. A blush, faint but real, spread across her pale face. Her lips parted but no words came. For the first time in countless centuries she was left speechless. "Why?" she asked softly, almost as if she was afraid to hear the answer. "Why would you ask such a thing?" Daniel swallowed hard. "Because I do not need power. I do not need riches. I only need to know that even in this galaxy, someone still remembers what it means to care." The silence that followed was heavier than the temple walls. She had faced kings, warriors, conquerors, all of whom demanded greed and lust. None had ever asked for something that touched the broken piece of her heart. Her voice trembled as she finally spoke. "Very well, human. Your first gift is granted. But know this. What you ask has bound us deeper than you realize." Her hand lifted, glowing with light. She stepped closer, so close that Daniel could feel her warmth. The symbols around the temple flared, sealing the pact between them. He felt a strange energy flow through him, not of power or strength, but of something softer, something alive. The succubus turned, at her face away, hiding the blush that still colored her cheeks. She had expected a simple human to be predictable, but now she found herself unsettled. His first request had shaken her more than any blade or chain ever had. Daniel did not know what fate awaited him. He did not know the danger of binding himself to such a being. But he knew one thing. For the first time in years, the hollow place in his heart felt just a little less empty. And for the first time in centuries, the succubus felt something she had sworn never to feel again. She felt human. The first request. The night after the summoning was restless for Daniel. He sat near the cold stones of the ruined temple, the torchlight flickering against the carvings, and every flicker seemed to make the succubus's shadow shift as if she was alive even in stillness. She did not sleep. She only stood with her arms folded and her glowing eyes watching him. She had told him she would grant him 3 gifts, but his first request was still burning inside her like fire on soft skin. No one had ever asked her for such a thing, not kings, not soldiers, not rulers of worlds. For the first time in her long, cursed existence, she had felt her own chest tighten, and it was not from anger or chains. It was something else, something she did not want to name. Daniel looked at her from across the altar, his voice steady, even though his body trembled. "You do not like my request," he said quietly, "but you still granted it. Why?" Her eyes narrowed, the fire in them glowing brighter. "You dare question me, human. You freed me. You bound me, and you asked for something that unsettles my very soul. Be grateful I did not burn you where you stood." Yet her words carried no heat. Instead, they carried confusion. She looked away as if ashamed of the blush that still lingered across her pale face. She had faced men who demanded her body, her power, her curse, but never this, never something that forced her to feel. Daniel only nodded. He was not foolish. He knew she could destroy him with a wisp. Or yet he also saw how she turned her face, how her lips pressed tightly as if hiding something. Outside, the wind howled through the ruins, but inside the temple there was only silence and the slow sound of 2 breaths, one human, one alien. Finally, she spoke again. "Tell me, mortal, what do you hope to gain? You ask not for riches, not for strength, not for pleasure. You ask for something fragile. Why?" Daniel's voice was softer now. "Because fragile things matter the most. Strength fades, gold disappears. Even power becomes empty. But when someone remembers kindness, it stays forever. That is what I want." Her chest rose and fell in a rhythm she had forgotten. For centuries, she had been nothing but a weapon of temptation, a chained beast used to bind men's souls. But here, one simple human was speaking words she had not heard in all her cursed eternity. She turned sharply to hide her expression. "Enough," she snapped. "Your first gift is sealed. Do not waste it with your foolish heart." But Daniel only smiled faintly. He could feel it. Behind her harsh voice, there was something breaking. The succubus moved closer, her steps making no sound. The air grew warm as she leaned near him. Her eyes glowed like burning embers, and yet her voice lowered to a whisper. "You are different, human. Do not think it makes you safe." Daniel met her eyes without stepping back. "Maybe I do not want to be safe." The moment stretched between them, thick with tension. Her face turned away again, her hair falling like a curtain to hide her blush. She had been a prisoner for centuries, yet tonight she felt more chained than ever, not by magic, but by a simple man's words. Suddenly the ground trembled. A deep hum echoed through the temple walls. The succubus's eyes flared wide. Her voice became sharp and dangerous. "They know," she hissed. "The ward is broken, and the hunters will come." Daniel frowned. "Hunters? What hunters?" She turned to him, her fire burning again. "Those who trapped me here, those who feared my power and cursed my name. They will sense my release, and they will kill you, human, for daring to free me." Daniel's heart pounded. He had only come searching for ruins. Now he was part of something far bigger. He looked at her carefully. "You could leave me here to die," he said. "You could vanish and save yourself." The succubus stepped closer, her fire burning with conflict. For centuries she had been feared, hunted, despised. And now this human had given her a request that made her feel alive. She should have left, but her lips whispered words she did not understand. "I cannot." Daniel felt the truth in her voice. His fear did not vanish, but something stronger rose inside him, determination. He stood taller than before. "If they come, then we face them together." Her eyes widened again. This human was not asking for her strength, not begging for her power. He was standing beside her, and that was more terrifying to her heart than any chain. The hunters were coming, and both of them knew it. But in that moment, the succubus realized something she had not felt in centuries. She was not alone, and deep inside, she feared his second request even more than the hunters themselves. Whispers of fear. The ruins no longer felt empty. The air itself seemed alive with warnings. Every stone hummed with echoes of the past, and Daniel felt the weight of unseen eyes. He did not know if it was the hunters the succubus spoke of, or the temple itself. But he knew one thing. He had crossed a line that could never be undone. The succubus stood near the altar, her arms folded, her face set like stone, but her glowing eyes betrayed her thoughts. She kept looking toward the temple doors, as if expecting shadows to walk in at any moment. Daniel broke the silence. "You said the hunters would come. Who are they?" Her voice was low, sharp, as if cutting through the air. "They are the keepers of old laws. They bound me here to ensure my kind would never rise again. They are not men. They are not merciful. And they will not stop until you are ash in the ground." Daniel's heart tightened. He wanted to believe he was brave, but the thought of something hunting him because of her made his chest heavy. "Still," he asked, "and you? Will they kill you too?" She looked away, her long dark hair falling over her face. "No," she whispered. "They will not kill me. They will cage me again, strip away the little freedom I have tasted, and bury me for another 1,000 years." For a moment she looked less like a demon and more like a prisoner. Daniel studied her carefully. He thought of his first request, the one that had made her blush. He realized now why it mattered. She was dangerous, yes, but she was also broken. The silence stretched until Daniel spoke again. "Do you regret granting my first gift?" Her eyes snapped toward him, glowing with fire, but the heat was not anger. It was something deeper. She stepped forward, her voice trembling though she tried to hide it. "No one has ever asked me for that. Human men begged for pleasure, rulers demanded kingdoms. But you asked me to feel something I had forgotten." Her lips pressed into a line, as if she wanted to say more but could not. Outside, the sound of the wind grew louder, almost like voices whispering. Daniel turned, his torch shaking. "Do you hear that?" The succubus stiffened. Her ears twitched slightly, the glow in her eyes sharpening. "They are near," she whispered. "Too near." Daniel swallowed hard. He had no weapon, no plan, no way to fight against creatures he had never seen. Yet when he looked at her, he saw fear. It was not the cold fear of death, but the heavier fear of chains, the kind that crushes the spirit. He stepped closer to her. "If they come for you, I will not let them take you." Her body froze, her lips parted slightly. For centuries she had been nothing but a curse to others, and here stood a human, ordinary, fragile, who dared to say he would fight for her. She wanted to laugh at the foolishness, but her heart would not let her. Instead, a strange warmth spread through her chest. She hissed under her breath, "Do not bind yourself to me further. You will not survive." Daniel did not step back. Maybe not, but if I walk away now, I will lose more than my life. I will lose myself. Her face turned sharply, hiding the rush of color across her cheeks. She could not understand him. His words cut through her walls more deeply than any blade. Suddenly, the temple shook again. Dust fell from the ceiling. The whispers grew louder, turning into something almost like chanting. Daniel looked around wildly, his fear rising. "What is that?" The succubus clenched her fists. "They are calling. Their eyes are upon us even now." Daniel felt the air thicken. The torchlight dimmed, and shadows began to stretch unnaturally across the floor. He took a step back, but the succubus stepped forward, placing herself between him and the shadows. Her wings, black and shimmering like smoke, unfurled for the first time, filling the chamber with a terrifying beauty. Her voice was sharp as fire. "If they come tonight, I will fight them, and if you stay human, you will fight too." Daniel felt his knees weaken, but deep inside he nodded. He had no blade, no strength like her, but he had made his choice the moment he spoke his first request. He would not leave. The succubus looked at him one last time. Her fiery eyes softened for only a breath. "You are a fool," she whispered. a brave fool. And for the first time in centuries, she felt something stir inside her. Not the hunger of her kind, not the weight of curses or chains, but the fragile, dangerous thing humans called hope. The hunters were drawing near. The whispers were turning into steps, and both of them knew. Part one of the pact had already changed everything. The second gift. The night did not pass quietly. Shadows pressed against the broken temple walls, the whispers fading only when the first light of dawn touched the stones. Daniel had not slept. His eyes were red, his hands shook, but he had refused to move from the succubus's side. She had not spoken through the night, her gaze fixed on the horizon as if waiting for the hunters to appear at any moment. When morning came, the air was no lighter. The ruin still felt alive, carrying the tension of something unseen. Daniel finally broke the silence. "You said I had 3 gifts. I gave my first request. Now I want my second." Her head turned slowly, her fiery eyes locking on him. "You dare," she said softly. "You dare to demand again when death is already crawling toward us." Daniel nodded, his voice steady even though his stomach twisted with fear. "Yes, because if I have only 2 chances left, I will not waste them." She stepped closer, her hair falling across her face like strands of shadow, her lips curved in the faintest trace of a smile, not of amusement, but of disbelief. "Humans," she whispered, "always demanding, always reckless. What is it you want now?" Daniel took a deep breath. His heart hammered against his ribs. This time he knew she expected something selfish. He knew she was prepared for greed. Yet he said something that stopped her in her tracks. "I want life," he said. "Not for me. For the dying village beyond these mountains. They suffer. They starve. They do not need my strength. They need yours. Use your gift to heal them." The succubus froze. Her eyes widened. Her lips parted slightly as if words had betrayed her. She had expected lust, wealth, or power, but this human again had chosen something else. Something that pulled at a place in her heart she had buried long ago. "You would waste your gift," she hissed. "You would give away your chance for survival." "Do you not understand, human? These hunters, they will come for you. You will not live to see another dawn." Daniel's voice was quiet, but unshaken. "Then let me give them something I cannot keep for myself." Her chest rose sharply. She looked away. Her hands trembled though she tried to hide it. No one had ever asked her for such a thing. She was a succubus, born to tempt, cursed to destroy, never to heal. Yet his words dragged something inside her she did not want to feel. Finally, she raised her hand, her voice low and filled with something like pain. "Very well. You shall have your second gift. But know this, what you ask will leave its mark on me as well." She moved her fingers through the air, light spilling from her palm. The ground trembled, and a rush of warmth surged from her body, spilling out beyond the ruins. Daniel felt it pass over him like sunlight, but stronger, richer. It carried life itself, far beyond the mountains. Fields of withered crops lifted their heads. Water flowed again where the ground had been dry, and the sick drew new breath in their weak chests. A village that had been near death stirred with hope they could not explain. The succubus staggered. Her breath came in sharp bursts. She pressed her hand against the altar for balance. Daniel caught her before she could fall. Her skin was hot, her body trembling. "You are weak," he said urgently. "Why?" Her lips curled bitterly. "Because healing is not in my nature. I am made to drain, not to give. You asked for something I was not meant to do." Daniel held her steady, his voice firm. "Then thank you." The simple words struck her harder than the demand itself. She turned her face away, her eyes burning brighter, not with fire but with something dangerously close to tears. "No one thanks a succubus," she whispered. "No one ever thanks me." Daniel's grip did not loosen. "I am not everyone." Her breath caught, for the second time she felt the chain in her chest tighten. Not from curse or hunters, but from him. She wanted to laugh at the foolishness of his heart, but instead she found herself afraid. Afraid of how deeply his requests cut her, before either of them could speak again, the ground shook violently, dust poured from the ceiling, and a low roar echoed outside the ruins. The hunters had come, their voices carried through the air like thunder, demanding her return. The succubus pulled herself from his grasp, her fire returning, her wings unfolding with a sound like rushing storms. Her voice was sharp again. "Stay behind me, human. This is not your fight." But Daniel stepped forward, his jaw set. "No, this is ours." Her heart stumbled in her chest. His second gift had left her weaker, but his words left her stronger. She did not understand this human. She did not understand herself. But as the shadows of the hunters closed in, she knew one thing. The human had already changed her more than 1,000 years of chains ever had. The shadow of hunters. The earth trembled as the hunters arrived. The air turned heavy, thick with the stench of iron and smoke. From the shadows of the mountain path came figures wrapped in dark armor. Their eyes glowed blue like frozen stars, and their voices echoed as one. "Give her back, human. She is cursed. She belongs to the chains." Daniel's breath caught in his throat. His body screamed for him to run, but his feet would not move. The succubus spread her black shimmering wings wide, her fire burning so bright the ruins seemed to glow. Her voice was sharp as steel. "I will not return to your prison. Not now. Not ever." The hunters stepped closer, their armored boots crushing stone underfoot. Spears of energy hummed in their hands, glowing with deadly light. One of them pointed at Daniel. "The human is tainted. Kill him." The succubus's fire flared. Her body moving before she thought, she stood in front of Daniel, her voice shaking with fury. "You will not touch him." Daniel's heart pounded. He had never seen such power in his life. She looked like a living storm, wings outstretched, flames dancing across her skin. Yet he also saw the weakness in her, the strain left from granting his second gift. Her body trembled, though she tried to hide it. The hunters lunged, their spears cutting through the air with blinding speed. Daniel dropped to the ground as one passed over his head. The succubus struck back, her wings slashing through the air, sending waves of fire and shadow that cracked the temple walls. One hunter was thrown back, his armor burning, but the others pressed forward. Daniel scrambled to his feet. He had no weapon, no power, only his will. He grabbed a broken piece of stone from the altar and swung it wildly at the nearest hunter. The stone shattered. The hunter barely flinched, but Daniel did not stop. He pushed forward, distracting them long enough for the succubus to release another blast of fire. The chamber shook, dust fell like rain, and Daniel coughed, his eyes burning. He turned to see her, her chest heaving, her fire dimming. Her power was not endless, and each strike drained her further. He shouted, "You cannot fight them alone," she snarled, her eyes blazing. "Then stand with me." Something ignited inside him. He had no strength of a soldier, but he had something the hunters did not, courage born from choice. He rushed to her side, his voice steady. "If they want you, they'll have to take us both." The hunters paused for a moment, as if the words of a fragile human carried weight they did not expect. Then their leader raised his spear and roared, "Chains or ashes, it makes no difference. Both of you will fall." The battle tore through the ruins. Flames clashed against energy spears. Shadows twisted across the walls. Daniel barely managed to dodge blow after blow, each strike close enough to steal his breath. He stumbled. Mar fell. But every time he rose again, the hunters seemed surprised, as if wondering why he had not given up. The succubus moved like lightning. Her fire lit the chamber, her wings cutting arcs of shadow. But every strike left her weaker. She faltered once, and a spear grazed her shoulder. She cried out, her knees buckling. Daniel caught her before she could fall. His hands shook, his heart raced, but his voice was firm. "Get up. We're not done yet." She looked at him, her fiery eyes wide. For centuries, no one had ever stood beside her, not like this. She saw his blood on his face, his weakness, his fear, and yet he stayed. She pushed herself up again, her fire burning brighter, not from strength, but from something else, from him. Together they struck, Daniel throwing himself into the chaos with nothing but broken stones and raw defiance, the succubus unleashing what little power she had left. One hunter fell, then another staggered. The temple cracked under the force, light and fire clashing in waves. But the hunters were endless, their shadows pouring in like a flood. Daniel gasped, sweat and blood mixing on his face. "We cannot hold them forever." The succubus's voice trembled but held fire. "Then it is time, human. Time for your third request. Speak it, and I will obey." Daniel's breath caught. His mind spun. He had only one gift left, one chance to change everything. He looked at her, at the chains in her heart, at the hunters pressing closer, and with the roar of the enemy closing in, Daniel whispered the words that froze her in place. Her fiery eyes widened, and for the second time she blushed, not from shame, not from fear, but from something deeper. Her hands shook, her lips parted, and for a heartbeat, even the hunters seemed to pause, because the human's third request was nothing they had ever expected, the final gift. The hunters pressed closer, their armor glowing. Cold blue, their voices chanting in one single echo. "Chains, chains, chains." The temple walls cracked from the weight of their power. Dust rained down as Daniel stood trembling, his arms still holding the succubus steady. His chest burned from the blows he had taken, yet his eyes did not leave hers. She glared at him, her voice rough with fire. "Speak, human. Use your last gift. Ask for power to crush them. Ask for wings of flame. Ask for something that will save your life." But Daniel only shook his head. His lips moved, his voice soft. "I do not ask for my life. I ask for yours. Be free." The words struck her harder than any spear. Her fiery eyes widened, her breath caught in her throat. She stumbled back as if the ground itself had betrayed her. Her pale face turned crimson. She whispered in disbelief, You want my freedom?" Daniel nodded, even as the hunters closed in. "Yes, my third request. I want you to live as you choose. No chains, no curses, no masters, only freedom." The succubus's wings shivered, her fire flickered wildly, her lips trembled. For centuries she had been treated as a weapon, a curse, a tool of desire. Never once had anyone asked for her happiness. Never once had someone wasted their one chance of power on her soul. The hunters roared, their spears raised. "The human is a fool," they chanted. "He will fall, and she will return to the chains." But their words could not silence the storm inside her. She pressed her hand to her chest, feeling something new, something terrifying. Her voice shook. "Human, do you understand what you have done?" Daniel met her blazing eyes. "I know, and I do not regret it." The glow of her power flared suddenly, stronger than before. The pact that had bound her for centuries shifted, cracked, and then shattered like glass. Light burst from her body, burning away the chains no one else could see. The hunters stepped back, their eyes widening in fear. She screamed, not in pain, but in release. Her wings stretched to their full span, fire and shadow swirling to get. Her voice was like thunder. "I am no longer bound. I am no one's prisoner." The hunters staggered, their unity broken. They raised their spears again, but her fire poured out in waves, stronger than it had ever been. Each strike lit the ruins, shaking the mountain. Daniel shielded his eyes as shadows burned into nothing. The hunters tried to chant their curse again, but the words failed them. Their blue light dimmed, and one by one they fell into ash, swallowed by the flames of her freedom. When the last shadow vanished, silence returned. The temple was broken. The altar cracked, the air hot and heavy. Daniel dropped to his knees, his body weak, his breaths came ragged, his vision blurry, but he smiled faintly. "You are free now." The succubus stood in the center of the ruin, her wings still blazing, her eyes still burning. But her face was wet, a single tear sliding down her cheek. She rushed to him, kneeling, her hands pressed against his shoulders. "Foolish human," she whispered. "Why would you do this? Why would you waste your only chance for power on me?" Daniel looked at her, his voice faint but steady. "Because no one deserves chains, not even you." Her chest tightened painfully. For centuries she had been feared, hated, cursed, and yet this fragile human had given her something she had never known. Choice. Her lips trembled, her blush deepening. She whispered, "You are mad, completely mad." But her trembling hands betrayed her. She held him as if letting go would shatter her world. She felt fire inside her unlike any magic she had ever known. Not hunger, not curse, but warmth. Daniel closed his eyes, his strength fading. She shook him, her fiery eyes wide. "No, do not close your eyes. Stay with me." Her voice cracked. She, a succubus who had watched kings die, who had crushed warriors under her heel, was now begging for one human to live. Her tears fell onto his feet. Ace, glowing like fire in the dust, the ruins lay silent, the hunters destroyed. But the real battle was inside her chest. Her heart beat wildly, torn between fear and something she could not yet say aloud. For the first time in her life, she was not blushing from shame, not from weakness, but from something even more dangerous. She was blushing because she cared, and as the last chains of her curse dissolved into air, she realized one terrifying truth. Her freedom was no longer hers alone. It was tied to him, beyond the pact. The ruins were silent after the storm. Broken stones lay scattered across the floor, glowing faintly with the ashes of hunters who once seemed unstoppable. Daniel lay weak against the altar, his chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. The succubus knelt beside him, her fiery eyes no longer fierce but soft with something she had tried all night to hide. She had her freedom now. She could leave. She could spread her wings and vanish into the skies, never to look back. But when she looked at the human who had given it to her, her chest ached in a way she had never known. Daniel's lips moved, his voice faint. "You're free now. You don't owe me anything." The succubus shook her head sharply, her hair falling around her face. "Fool," she whispered. "You gave me freedom, but you bound me to something greater. Do you not see? You chained me to your heart." Her trembling hand brushed his cheek. Her touch was warm, careful, almost human. Her blush deepened as his tired eyes opened to meet hers. For centuries she had been used, feared, hated. But never once had someone looked at her as he did now, with no fear, no greed, only trust. Daniel tried to sit up, but his body resisted. She steadied him, her strength returning now that her curse was gone. For the first time, she was not a weapon of destruction. For the first time, she was free to choose, he whispered. "What will you do now?" Her lips trembled. "I could fly, I could vanish, I could rule or destroy, but none of it matters. 'Cause what I want is here." Her voice cracked as she admitted the truth. "I want to stay." Daniel blinked, surprise flickering across his face. After all the danger, all the hunters, he expected her to leave. But her fiery eyes held steady, not with chains, not with fire, but with something fragile and alive. Outside, the dawn spread across the mountains, golden light spilling through the broken temple walls. The world beyond was waiting, a galaxy still hostile, still full of fear for her kind. But here, in this ruined place, one choice had changed everything. The succubus stood, her wings folding around her like a cloak. She extended her hand toward him, her blush still painting her pale face. "Come with me, human," she whispered. "Not as my master, not as my prisoner, but as the one who saw me. The one who asked not for power, but for my heart." Daniel looked at her hand. His own was trembling, scarred and weak, but he placed it in hers. She pulled him gently to his feet, supporting him as though he was the one with wings. Together they stepped into the sunlight. For the first time in centuries, her steps were her own, her chains gone, her curse broken, and yet she felt a new bond, one she did not fear. The hunters were gone, but whispers of their defeat would spread across the stars. Other worlds would soon know that a succubus walked free again, and that she walked beside a human, not as a curse, but as a choice. She leaned close, her voice soft. "Do you realize, human, what you have done? You have made the most feared creature in the galaxy blush." Daniel smiled faintly, his body still weak, but his spirit stronger than ever. "Then maybe that's my gift, not yours." Her lips curved into a smile, small and trembling but real. She squeezed his hand tighter. Her heart raced in a way even she could not control. For once in her endless life, she was not ashamed of the warmth in her cheeks. The ruined temple faded behind them as they walked into the light. The galaxy would not understand them, perhaps it would even hunt them, but neither cared, because in that moment, the succubus was no longer just a creature of shadows, and the human was no longer just a fragile man. They were something new, something no chain or curse could break. They were free together. The end. Enjoyed the story? Like it and subscribe for more.